they didn't get that much better field position than one. You get the chance to run it back. Anything can happen on a kickoff return. You got to take it out there, and you're not even saving yourself that much field position by conceding the point, and now you're going to overtime. Welcome back to the 11th Island. We're ending the CFL season the same way that we started it, with an in-person recording. We previewed the season like this. We're going to recap the Grey Cup and the season like this. Chris, where are we starting off today?
Well, first we're starting with the big game, Grey Cup 108, the Blue Bombers and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Brad, what do you think about this game?
My heart is broken for the Hamilton fans that haven't had a championship since 1999. My heart's broken for Garrett, friend of the program. We talked to him last week. They went into this really with their hopes up. It was a home game for them. It was in their stands. It was all black and gold, and they had the win. They lost the game in more ways than one. They had it won going into that fourth quarter. I looked at you. I said, "This game's over. Hamilton's winning it." And well, it didn't turn out like that. When Winnipeg took that safety, we were at the game, of course. We looked. You can see us all Grey Cup swagged out. Winnipeg took that safety, and we were just scratching our heads. We thought that was going to be. We thought we'd be sitting here talking about how that safety changed the game, but that Winnipeg, I don't even know if it's a smart decision as much as Hamilton just blew it in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, because I mean they took the safety, so they didn't have to kick into the wind, and then the kick return that they had after the safety, where they had a better position to kick from, was a great return for the Ticats. All you had to do was really keep driving the clock, keep pounding the defensive line, get some first downs, run the clock, maybe score. Yeah. And they just couldn't do it.
Well, I think after that you're at 19-10. There's 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter. You're on the 5-yard line on a 3rd and 3, and you decide to kick a field goal to push it to 22-10. Now you can go 2-possession game, but it's still a 2-possession game at 19-10, and your defense has been killing Claros. Claros coming off 2 interceptions in the third quarter, and you take the 3 points. You got to be aggressive, try and win the game. We talked about this last week with the Argos, where they didn't try to win the game. They're playing it safe. You punch it in. The game's over at that point, and even if you don't get it, you're leaving Winnipeg on their 5-yard line when your defense has been stingy all night long. You got to trust your defense. Instead, you give them the chance to get back in the game.
And leaving them at that 5-yard line is huge, because at that point the Bombers were going with the wind. You would be kicking to them into the wind. There was some kicks going that way. You almost lost yardage in that game.
Yeah.
So it's better to pin them and try and miss going for a touchdown, give up 3 points, not get 3 points, and have them pinned, than to go for those 3 points. At that point of the game, field position was so critical to this entire contest, especially in that first half going into the third, where we were, and like the score was not really as important as just pinning them to that 5.
Yeah, and then you have the singles that Hamilton gave up. I think they gave up 4 singles over the course of the entire game, which those 4 points are a lot. But you have the one where midway through the fourth quarter, where he essentially just missed it, rolls out the back, makes it a 1-point game. But the big one is for Hamilton's last drive, where I believe it was White. He gets it. He's about a yard deep in the end zone. He has blazing speed, and he decides to take a knee. Make it a 3-point game, where then they drive down and they're kicking a field goal to tie it. They didn't get that much better field position than one. You get the chance to run it back. Anything can happen on a kickoff return. You got to take it out there, and you're not even saving yourself that much field position by conceding the point, and now you're going to overtime. And you can look at that last drive for Hamilton, where the Ackland probably should have caught that ball in the end zone to win the game with a couple seconds left. Hell of a play by the Winnipeg cornerback there, but you got to catch that ball.
And the defensive play there, from where we were looking, we said, wow, he just went out there and saved this game, swatting it away. Seeing the replay, though, this morning from TSN, you see, that was right here. That was right here. So, that one, Hamilton fans are going to look at that replay and that's going to be the fish that got away. Some old man in the sea action there, and that one stinks.
Yeah, and I want to talk about Winnipeg because, of course, Winnipeg played great. Of course, they won the game. But before we get into them, too, we're going to talk about Masoli, of course, coming in for Dane Evans, who left the game in the second quarter. I think that, honestly, Masoli played pretty well in this game. He's going to have the interception. That was batted around in overtime. I don't think that's necessarily on him. But he played pretty well. He played better than Dane Evans was playing to the point that he came out of the game. People might look at that and say, is there a reason for it? But I don't think this is a big story. It's a big storyline, of course, when your starting QB gets injured, comes out of the game. But I don't think it's a storyline in necessarily how it changed the game. I think in all reality, the way the game was going with Dane Evans, it almost helped Hamilton. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think Mazzoli and Dane Evans, one of the strengths of this Hamilton team, despite never really having clarity on the quarterback situation, and I don't think at this point we have clarity still.
No. And they're both free agents.
And they're both free agents, so it's going to be interesting to see Hamilton. I mean, you almost flip a coin at this point.
Yeah.
Looking at, Mazzoli was in for so long, people were saying Dane Evans should come in. Mazzoli gets taken out of that game against the Argos. Dane Evans pulls off the win, comes in. And people were rocking with him. He was the quarterback getting in all the media attention at press week. He had really kind of stepped in there.
Yeah.
And I think to see if you're a guy in Mazzoli, yes, he's your teammate. I think they have a good relationship. But at the same time, you're waiting in the wings and you see your opportunity. You come out hungry.
Yeah.
I really liked what I saw from Mazzoli. I'm really hoping Dane Evans is healthy and feeling a lot better this morning because the play that he got hurt on didn't seem too bad looking at it's kind of just a tweak of something. But a few plays prior, when he was kind of had his legs back and he just got almost tugged back, it was like folding backwards, bending backwards.
Yeah.
That was a scary play.
Yeah, probably the neck injury wouldn't be shocking if it started there and then just hurt itself throughout the game. But for Winnipeg here, I guess we can start with the most outstanding player of the year and now Grey Cup MVP to cap it all off, Zach Collaros. A hell of an acquisition by him, by Winnipeg to get him. It's a hell of a game that Winnipeg played. They deserved to win this game from the first minus the first 3 minutes of the 2021 CFL season. Winnipeg has been bar none the best team in the league. We've expected really since that week that they would be here. They made it here. They won the game. They faced some ups and downs. Even last week in the West Final against Saskatchewan, they had to really face some adversity today. But that's a winning locker room. Going back to back, this is pretty much the same group of guys. And at this point, if they're able to keep that group together, I don't see any situation where they're not going for a three-peat next year.
Well, we saw Collaros pull off the MOP for the season going into this week. And I think the interesting thing about that, you look at the numbers of just quarterback play this whole season, nothing really jumping out of the page, even from our MOP. And I think part of what makes him the most valuable player out there, most outstanding player out there, is the fact that he can be consistent. He can actually come out and play every week, which not a lot of teams have QBs that can say that this season. And I think one of the best things about Collaros is his ability to not get too much into his head. I don't think he's a very thoughtful player in the way that he play calls, but at the same time,
he's not thoughtful. He's not like thinking, too much in his head.
He's not too much in his head in terms of. I think he's just a very relaxed, cool guy. So he can give up a couple picks like he did in this game and not be completely blown up, just like a lot of the QBs we've seen this season.
And what helps him be so confident, I think, is the fact that he has one of the best defenses that we've ever seen in the CFL in that Winnipeg Blue Bombers defense going out in the field right after him. Yeah. That defense is all-time so good. Like Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat, Adam Bighill won his third Defensive Player of the Year. Like Darby, cornerback, Brandon Alexander, like just big names on defense.
And I think if you can give up a pick and then walk off the field, see your defense walking past you, and they're already saying no harm, no foul, and it really, I think, keeps that confidence going the next time you step out on the field. Yeah. And another thing, I said before this game that special teams was going to play a huge factor. Kicking was going to be a huge factor because we've seen Hamilton struggle, and we've seen the Blue Bombers really figure things out with Castillo. You look at a Bombers team that stayed very healthy, that stayed very consistent. They've had their offense locked down. They've had their defense just super steady this whole season. But the kicking game, I think they've had 4 kickers over the course of the season. That's the one thing that they've been slotting in and out. And I think they finally found the winning solution there.
Yeah, would he go 5 for 5 last night? I mean, he could have been honestly player of the game
and,
too.
And also, it just with that wind, we saw special teams just struggle the whole night on both sides, the kicking and receiving. So to have that factor in there, it was a huge element for the Bombers, especially as we headed into the late game. You look at the Rouges too.
Yeah,
that plays a huge factor.
Yeah, Hamilton's special teams really let them down. There was some really bad, like you said, receiving and kicking. It's a tough situation for Hamilton. It really is. So, do you have anything else on Winnipeg?
I mean, it's just I think that this offseason for every other team other than the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is just thinking, okay, we're going to build a team to counter the Winnipeg Blue Bombers here. If we're going to want to be Grey Cup contenders next season, and you look, the bar has been set.
Yeah,
I think it's a very high caliber team they have out in Winnipeg, and everybody's going to have to wake up to that.
Yeah, if nothing changes, that little bar that we're on there on YouTube that says back to back might be saying 3-peat.
Yeah.
And next up,
all right, Oski, wamp.
Yeah, like I said off the top, this is heartbreaking for Hamilton. Being in Hamilton, seeing the pride that city has in their team, everybody was loving it. Chris, are we losing the green screen back there?
What?
You were looking behind you there.
No, I thought this thing was on my chair, but
all right, all right, we're good. But Hamilton has. Yeah, this is heartbreaking for Hamilton, especially having the game in hand. Now, there's a lot of questions going the offseason. You have Orlando Steinhauer being rumored to go to the University of Washington as defensive coordinator. Makes a lot of sense for him. He's American from the Seattle area. Going to be paid a lot more, honestly, to probably coach there. You look at Dane Evans, Jeremiah Masoli are free agents. There's a lot of moving parts for a team that's now lost back-to-back Grey Cups that might go into next season with a different coach. And in all honesty, might be a different quarterback. Because you're looking at a situation where you had embarrassment of riches with these QBs. You thought going into the season, Masoli and Dane Evans, they've both had opportunities. Neither of them got it done, and neither of them played well enough to really take the reins. Because when they gave it back to Dane Evans in the East Final, and he played well, but there was a reason why Masoli was in there. If Dane Evans had played to a top-level potential early in the season, Masoli's not starting that game to begin with. And Masoli, there's a reason why he got benched a couple times this year. So there's a lot of questions, and I could see a situation where new QB, new coach, fresh start for Hamilton next year.
Yeah, and I think that whole QB battle, we've mentioned it so many times, and it's really paid off in terms of the way it was hyped. And to think that we were going into week 1 being like, okay, so who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? This is going to be decided. And you look at it now and you're like, wow, who do we keep? Do they? And I'm the way I think, the way my brain works. If I was involved in making decisions for the Hamilton Tiger Cats, I'm almost saying, you know what? Let's look at free agency. Let's look at the way things shuffle out. Because whoever you pick out of those two to re-sign, it's just the eggs are going to be in your brain, and it's just better to wish them both the best. And
I think if you're going to pick one, I think you pick Dane Evans, but I think you got to attack free agency here, and the only issue I can see is you're not going to be the only team attacking free agency. I think Toronto over there is going to be attacking it hard, and that rivalry there. There could be,
and I think another thing, we'll touch on this a little bit later too. But with the World Football League,
the USFL,
the World Football, the USFL. Sorry, the USFL coming in spring. You got the XFL coming back soon. You have a potential for a maritime team in the CFL. There's a lot of quarterback spots that are opening up, and the one thing about with all football, as all football fans would know, quarterbacks can be hard to come by sometimes. So I think that it's going to be a very dynamic situation going into free agency and in the offseason for a lot of teams looking for quarterbacks, and that almost makes me go against my point and say maybe you just gotta lock these guys down now.
Yeah,
one of these guys down now,
or you gotta really enter free agency with the Brinks truck loaded up.
Yes,
and throw the bag at somebody and hope that somebody wants to come play.
Well, and the thing is, Hamilton, no matter who's on the field, what the personnel looks like, the fans will, as we've seen this season, the fans will be in the stands. We were hearing stories about people coming from Buffalo to come watch the Hamilton Tiger game. Pre-COVID. It's just the fan base there. It's a football town, and they know what it takes on a fan side to win. And you're looking at a situation where I think you look at a rivalry in the Argos and the Ticats. If and we're Argos fans at the end of the day, but the Ticats, they have a lot of ammo going into that rivalry next season, and they're gonna keep making BMO Field a home game. They're gonna be able to scrap out and get deep into the playoffs next season.
And I think it's a situation where the Argos and Tiger Cats is a massive rivalry, but given the fan bases, it's very, and again, we're Argos, it's very one-sided right now. It feels like a lot of Tiger Cats screaming into the wind and just needing somebody to hate at the end of the day. And the Argos just being like, we're just kind of like, there's 8,000 of us that show up at a game. Half of them are for the other team's fans. Yeah. Like, we're just trying to, we're just trying to get through the day.
We're just gonna,
we're just gonna hide a little bit here. But yeah, I think it's gonna be. We'll touch on. We'll keep going in the off season, and we'll touch on it as things develop here. But I think it's time to move on
to just a season recap.
Yeah, I mean the 2021 season's coming to an end here. It's our. We've done a weekly show now every week for the CFL, twice a week during the playoffs. It's been a great year. I mean, a lot of talk about that this has been one of the most underwhelming seasons in the CFL's recent history. But at the end of the day, in a 14-game shortened schedule because of last year being off for COVID, the majority of the players coming into this year hadn't even played last year. The fact that we had football, that we had exciting football at many a times that people are going to overlook here. We had a lot of contenders. We had a team in Winnipeg that was just an all-time fantastic team. And we finished off with the Grey Cup that's going to be looked at as a classic in many people's opinions, given the overtime, the close finish. I think we're lucky to be CFL fans at this point.
And I think a game like the one that we had yesterday couldn't have come at a more perfect time with a big CFL franchise playing at home. I think that drew a lot of eyes from the entire world of football.
Yes.
I had friends that are NFL purist fans, those guys that, if you go to the CFL, you know how these guys are, texting me after the game. They were making fun of it. Up until I was sitting down in the seat taking pictures, then they started watching from home. Were texting me, man, that's crazy. Great football. And I think just what last night was huge for the CFL. Shame for the Hamilton Tiger Cats fans, but it was a close game. If you can say, and at the end of the day, you can look. And we're going to go back to the Ticats. You can look, this, that, blah, 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 But ultimately, if you can get to overtime against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, who a lot of people were saying all through the season that we just might as well pack it up right now. I
don't know if Hamilton's going to be feeling that way. But
Hamilton's not going to feel that way. But consider where they were, halfway through the season, third place in the East. You had the Alouettes heating up with Vernon Adams Jr. with an exciting wide receiver core that was just explosive. You had the Argos that were just horseshoe up the butt, as you've said. And the Ticats just, like, whatever quarterback they played wasn't the guy. Well, and they were able to ride through that. Speaks to the.
I think what you're saying there too is also it shows that the East is actually starting to pick up and catch up with the West. That it wasn't just the West Coast was solid this year. and then the East Coast were just kind of there because
Yeah.
they have to be, which I think is important for the long-term success of this league. The fans obviously are far more on the West Coast, but to get the East Coast fans into it, you have to have exciting football. And in a 2019 year where the Argos and Red Blacks were just borderline unwatchable, you kind of, I mean, Red Blacks weren't very much better this year, but you need to have at least 3 to 4 teams competitive to make exciting football, to try and at least persuade Eastern fans to get into it.
And I think on the West side, that was a real, I mean, the Bombers really ran away, but to get into the playoffs and get good seeding, that was a real foot race. And I mean, to think about a team like the BC Lions that, really, we haven't thought much about them in a while, but if you look back to when they were really contenders to sneak in there, it was right up till the very end that the wheels just fell off the car. It was a crash. It wasn't a running out of gas,
Yeah,
so it was very exciting.
They lost so many close games this year that they could have been in the playoffs.
Yes, exactly. It was the difference of a few points and a few plays that kept the BC Lions from being really out of that late season conversation. Yeah. So I think the parity has been very good. The team's ability to bounce back when QBs go down, when things unexpected happens, you look back to, and this one's on the CFL. I mean, they're coming out of last week with some egg on their face with the whole McLeod Bethel Thompson situation, but ultimately, you look at one game had to get moved because of COVID, and that was the Elks game in like week 4 against the Argos.
Yeah, and they managed to make it work. It was a tough situation, but yeah, in all reality, the fact that we had a season, that the CFL in honesty is still running after everything with COVID, I think we have to look at this as a success. We're going to move on to another great year in 2022. There's a lot of talk about potential changes. I think that's saved for another video that could be coming. Some of them could be.
We'll take the elephant in the room, which is the Argos talk, which I'm hearing more of it now.
I don't even think that's the elephant in the room right now. I think the 3 down versus 4 down.
The 4 downs, but I think so. Those two things are the biggest, most visual changes. But I think the one that we can touch on now in a reflection on this season is the ability to start a season, Lord willing, on normal schedule, have a full season. I think that's going to be that. A lot of the issues with this season, I think, come down to scheduling, just the getting back into it after a year off. Scheduling, you had the Ticats not playing a home game until Labor Day. You had the Elks playing at times 3 times in 8 days on either side of the country. It's so I think there's a lot of things that were just quirks of the times we're living in, the politics we're living in, and just the way things are, so I think to get through that, okay, now we're going to go onwards to the next season. It's going to be a full season, bigger than ever. I think this is a great launch springboard. I mean, every year Randy Ambrosi comes on and says this is the new CFL, and nothing much changes. But the second we start using the word 4 downs,
I think once there's some more credible news to what might be happening with that, we'll come through with a video for that. We're not going to stop our CFL news, so I think we'll get into that in the future. But with that being said, Chris,
we wanted to thank everybody that's watched these videos, clicked on these videos. It's been such a treat to be able to do these weekly shows. And, I mean, right now it's more than just weekly, but it's been fun. Thank you to all the people we've interviewed.
Yes.
Willie Jefferson, Gino Lewis, Jagarrett Davis.
Matt Nichols.
Jameer Thurman. It's been such a great time. Brad, what do you think?
Yeah, I just, this is, again, we're pretty new to the YouTube thing. We've been running on for a little bit. For CFL, we decided to jump into the deep end with it this year, start the weekly show, and it's been really enjoyable. We've had a lot of great interaction with the fans, especially Ryan. Like, you've been an absolute treat, commenting on every single YouTube video this year. It's been fun. We look forward to the comments every week, and it's essentially just the CFL is such a small market vibe, and we tried to embrace that. And I feel like you guys were there with us, and I thank you for allowing us to be a kind of a little sliver of the CFL this year, and being a part of your week in and week out.
And thank you for putting up with 15 minutes of Argos talk to start the show.
Yes. Thank you for putting up with our biases. And this is not the last of our CFL. This was a lot of fun. We've, I think, grown a lot, learned a lot from this weekly show, and we'll be back better than ever next year. We'll be back with off-season talk. But if you enjoy this talk too, we talk about other things as well.
Yes.
So don't leave us for 6 months.
Yeah.
We got some good videos and other aspects coming up soon. But just thank you. It really means a lot to us whenever you check our stuff out.
Yep. All right, Brad. Speaking of checking our stuff out, where can people find us, and what do they need to do now that the video's over?
Yeah, if you're on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We also have an audio version of this, so check out wherever you find your podcast, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, whatever. And 500 subscriber 500 subscriber giveaway coming out soon. Make sure to get in before that is. We're about 110 subs away from that, which we'll hit it soon enough.
Yeah.
And you can get that, so check out the sports card playlist. And that being said, we'll see you next year.